Hey all, here are OS Reviews. Today we're taking a closer look at the Sunzo Mini PC, also known as the DreamQuest Office. It's a relatively budget model that starts at $135 with 4 gigs of RAM. There's a deluxe model that has 8 gigs of RAM. There's 128 gigs of built-in SSD, runs on Windows 10 Pro Edition, and also includes an interesting LED strip built into the casing that makes it look a little bit more distinctive than some of the other mini PCs that we've seen previously. And the SATA SSD can also be upgraded on the rear there. Finally, again, in terms of performance, it is using a Intel Celeron chipset, which is quad-core, with a turbo speed up to 2.3 GHz. Inside of the slightly generic-looking box, we'll find access to the mini PC, of course, in addition to a quick start guide, along with a HDMI cable that you get as a bonus. There's also a kind of adapter you can use to plug in another SSD. Now, this adapter is using a round-based plug, as you can see there. I would have preferred to see maybe USB Type-C, but again, at this relatively low price point, it is what it is. The hardware of the mini PC is definitely more premium than the price would imply, because the entire frame here is constructed out of aluminum and metal, so it feels very cold to the touch, including the back panel here is also made out of metal. We can kind of make out some of the circuitry underneath, and the screws behind the rubber feet can be removed, again to access the expansion slot for the SSD. Really well put together compared to other budget mini PCs we've seen are primarily made out of plastic for this price. And then the very top surface here is super glossy. It's also made out of tempered glass, which is, again, very premium. However, one downside is it attracts fingerprints and smudges very easily, so you do need to clean it off more regularly. And on the top here, we do have access to a power key. The side here features ventilation ports, as well as 2 USB 3.0 ports, 2 more USB 2.0 for a combined total of 4. There's also a micro SD card reader built on in. More ventilation, and finally on the rear we do have an Ethernet if you don't want to use Wi-Fi, auxiliary 3.5mm, and there's also VGA, full-size HDMI, and the power adapter. So one thing that you'll notice here is it's not coming included with a USB Type-C port, so that is one feature I would like to see going into 2021, but as it is, you're able to connect up to 2 displays using VGA or HDMI, outputting at up to 4K resolution. So here is the startup animation with the LEDs, and the mini PC boots into Windows 10 in around 20 seconds, so relatively quick from a cold boot, and while on, it'll basically continue to slowly fade in and out with these LED lights. It's only this one color, but it still adds for kind of a fun touch, and we're greeted to a very clean version of Windows 10 Pro Edition. Taking a closer look at some system specs here, out of the 128 gig built-in SSD, roughly 77 gigs which are free after the Windows operating system is installed. Sufficient for some light media, some quick documents, as well as some lighter programs if you want to install directly, although you can always supplement it again with another hard drive or thumb drive or SD card. We're also able to see that indeed we have the Celeron J3455 as well as 8 gigs of built-in RAM. Some quick observations here, one of them being that the Wi-Fi signal strength does seem to be quite good, even though we're a little bit further away from the router right now. I was consistently getting around full bars. Again, it covers both 2.4G and 5G wireless, although it doesn't support Wi-Fi 6, but still works quite well in terms of getting a steady connection. The navigation and fluidity using the UI in terms of opening up files and browsing around is still relatively quick and snappy, as you can see here, despite the relatively mid-end or entry-level specs that we're getting on here. So the read and write speeds, system navigation is all done respectively. A little bit more about the specs here. So again, it is using the Celeron J3455. It has a CPU passmark score of 2,264. In terms of a entry-level chip, certainly better than past generations of processors have been in terms of comparing it with a Cherry Trail or Intel Atom processor that mini PCs used to have. It won't be a rival to a powerful gaming machine or a more expensive computer, but for light usage web browsing, it certainly handles these tasks decently. In terms of comparisons with the score as well as the power that we have here, other slightly older processors and chips see here are also not too far off in terms of the scoring. This is of course much earlier generations of the i3 and i5 chips, so again, advancements have definitely been made. Definitely more than usable here. Now, other popular mini PCs in the same price range that we've reviewed recently typically use chipsets like the Celeron N3450, which is a very popular chip. N3450 is actually scoring a little bit lower than the chip here that we have. Again, the Celeron J3455. So we do get roughly 200 points higher on the CPU passmark score. Although both of these chips are from architecture that came out in the last quarter of 2016, so it's not the newest design in the world, but still is, again, going to suffice for some light usage. At the same time, it's a little bit lower than the other chipset that we also saw in another mini PC just about a few months ago. It was the Celeron N4 100, which is 200 points higher than this one as well. So it kind of sits in the middle. Now in terms of web browsing, speaking of, we can take a quick look at how long it takes to open up a tab like The Verge, as well as videos and articles and photos, but you can see here how it loads back almost instantly when you click on the page. And for the most part, scrolling is very smooth and responsive, even though right now we have already a handful of tabs that are open. So the 8 gigs of RAM is for sure helping it in terms of keeping a few more tabs open before it feels boggled down or getting any slower. I would say from my experience using Chrome, you're able to keep around 10 tabs open in the browser before things start to slow down a little bit. And if you're using Edge, it gets even better. So definitely good enough to get you through some regular usage when it comes to work. Say you want to check out Amazon and see how long it takes up to load back Amazon's page. Also, again, very quick, as you can see there, jumping back and forth between these pages. Now speaking of, I have a few videos open here, and these are both 4K videos. So the point I want to show here is as a multimedia streamer, if you want to play back some media content at 4K resolution, it will still more than handle that. So good enough in terms of giving you a pretty good experience if you want to watch YouTube videos, Netflix, movies that you want to even play back locally. It can handle 4K playback without any real problems in terms of stuttering. And again, it's fast enough, the signal strength is strong enough that it keeps it playing back relatively smoothly without any buffering either, which is great. Let's try jumping into another part of the video. And again, it plays back pretty quickly using the dual band Wi-Fi. Not really too many problems despite the Ultra HD resolution here. We can even go back into, let's say, another video here and play this one back. Maybe takes a split second longer to kind of full screen and exit in terms of some of these animations because it still is a relatively entry-level chip at the end of the day, but again, certainly not bad. Once the video starts playing, you can see here that everything is loading along. Now the mini PC is very quiet, even though there is a fan that can sometimes kick in if it is working extra hard, let's say if you're editing a video. However, for the most part, it's going to be silent, so no noise generated in the background, which is great. As far as doing the bit of productivity that I was mentioning here, we can open up something like a PowerPoint. If you're a student, if you're taking courses, or even doing a bit of business work, it can definitely handle that without any issues, like most machines these days. So you can type in edits to a document, and again, it's pretty fast and responsive, quick to save. Same thing with spreadsheets, you're able to kind of enter all the formulas, everything is happening pretty quickly, and again, not much delay, even as we're doing any computations, certainly handles that without any problems. It's a bit of light coding as well. If you're a student or looking to do a bit of programming, work with R or Python and do a bit of work there, it certainly will handle that as well. Text editors, Sublime, all can be run on this without any real issues. And you can also take advantage of many of the cloud tools which are available these days that can further optimize the performance, where your computer is basically a portal to other more powerful machines sitting on the cloud or in the servers. So as long as it has a reliable connection to the internet and has a good kind of display experience interface, everything else you can of course take advantage of and try other tools as well. So it's, again, more than usable for office work and some productivity, really without too much problems here. Now, other things I want to quickly point out, I mentioned video editing, and of course you can install any tools such as Photoshop, but there's even kind of Microsoft's own video editor tools baked into the Windows 10 Pro edition, and for the most part it works quite well. When it comes to actually doing a video edit, of course the hardware on here with an integrated GPU is still not going to be the most powerful thing in the world. So if you're trying to render a, let's say, 5-minute full HD resolution video, it will take around 15 minutes. So it's not going to be as fast, again, as a Intel Core i series machine, something more powerful and has a dedicated GPU, but for the most part definitely is still usable if you're in a pinch. Other more lighter tasks like editing a quick photo in Photoshop with fewer layers will also run pretty fast on here. The beauty of a full version of Windows is you can leverage the legacy programs and apps that you want, any exe files that you even can find online, you can install depending on your needs, and it will work without any issues. And of course, you can also take advantage of the Microsoft Store if you want to do some more kind of optimized apps that they recommend as well, including games and titles, entertainment related. You can find it here, and any of these you can just quickly install. Minecraft or some older emulations games, of course, will still run fine without any problems, and you can also take advantage of cloud gaming services. That goes back to the concept that the machine is basically just a portal, and if you have a good internet, the hardware can be somewhere else, and you can still play back more advanced titles. So that's more or less it as far as our quick look at this mini PC from Sunzo. And overall, I would say it's another decent value. I would say the strength of this model really lies in the construction quality of the machine itself. The real glass, as well as the full metal frame that they're using, definitely gives it more heft. Almost reminds me of something that Apple would make or build themselves. It really does feel like something that's more expensive than the price would suggest. The performance of the machine, however, is really in line with other mini PCs for under 200 that we've been reviewing lately, and so it's not really a huge surprise, but the amount of RAM as well as the Celeron chipset here is good enough to do some web browsing with, again, handling multitasking, as well as playing back 4K videos for media streaming without too much problems, even though gaming really isn't its forte. But if you want something small, lightweight, again, good to use for regular, daily, casual usage and web browsing primarily, I think this is still a decent choice to consider. You can check out more details if you're interested in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews.